So we are going to cover chapter 4 on both Monday and Wednesday this week. Okay. If you look at your assignments for chapter 4, they kind of build one on top of each other. So this popularity benchmark and average contribution margin, okay, once you get that, the grasp of that, which we will go over in more detail on Wednesday, then that allows you to do the analyzing menu mix homework. Okay, so you can see they're due 1 week after another. So I'm giving you plenty of time to work on these. And then right before we go to spring break is your chapter 4 exam, which will basically, if you've done the analyzing menu mix homework, then you'll be prepared to do your final exam, your chapter 4 exam. Okay, so they build on top of each other. Now, if you want to do it while the information's fresh in your mind, if you want to do it and then just knock it out the next one and then knock out the next one, then you're done. You don't have to worry about it. Okay, so you can do those a little bit ahead of time. So let's notes. And while I have that open, let me add this more. You have that for next class period. There we go. Okay. So let's talk about chapter 4. Basically, in chapter 4, we are going to be discussing different ways that we can price our menu items. Okay. There's not one specific way. So you may one method is type of the other one. So that's primarily what we're going to talk about, what impacts or affects our menu pricing. And then my favorite part is the menu analysis, which is what we'll go over on Wednesday. Okay. So different areas that affect our menu pricing, our competition. How does our competition impact or affect our menu pricing? What do you think? Andrew, what's that?
Better pricing.
Okay, what do you mean by better pricing? Okay, yeah. So if you can get the same quality or less, sorry, I'm just resetting my speakers, make sure they work. Can someone online unmute themselves so I can make sure my speakers are working?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Awesome, thank you. Perfect. Okay, yes. So sometimes, if the menu pricing is better, and they get the guests and customers get the same quality of product, they may be swayed to go somewhere else, right? What else? Competition. What about talking about our price value relationship? What does that mean when you think of price value relationship?
The value of like whatever you're buying, I guess, like how much something costs, the value of how
Yeah,
much it is.
absolutely. How many of you have ever been to a place where you're like, wow, I paid way too much money for that? Okay. Your price value relationship is such that you paid a lot of money for maybe not a lot of value. Okay. Or vice versa. You're like, wow, I'd pay for that again. That was a great experience. The value of what you received compared to the price that you're paying, if somebody does not value the same level that you're charging, doesn't matter how amazing your food is. Because if people don't associate value with that, then they're not going to buy your food. Okay. We're going to talk about markup differentiation here in just one moment. Okay. So, price value relationship, that's one thing. We have no, when we talk about external factors, okay, what's the opposite of external?
Internal.
Internal, which means we can control those within ourselves, right? External means I have no control over this. I can't control what value people put on the food that I'm selling them, right? That's all up to them. Okay. How do I see? Oh, there we go. Okay. The markup differentiation we'll talk about in just a minute. Let's talk about market driven and demand driven pricing. So market driven, that's very similar to our competition. Whatever the market is allowing, okay? Whatever that market um, will actually support. Okay. So when I say market, what do you think I mean? Or who has no idea what I mean when I say the market? Anybody confused?
Market, I think of like I guess whatever product I'm selling, whatever.
Okay.
Everyone who sells burgers or everyone who sells pizza, they're each their individual markets.
Yeah. So we can also take it into a regional perspective as well, right? So we have all the burger people that sell burgers in the San Antonio market. So all the people that sell burgers in San Antonio. Okay. We also might have like a Texas market. Do you all think that the San Antonio market is the same as the New York City market, the type of guests and types of restaurants that we offer? No. Okay. So if you are pricing yourself out of the market that you're serving in, then again, we have no control over that. What the market is willing to pay is what people are going to pay. Okay. Um, demand driven pricing. Now that is a situation where people have you ever been to like the AT&T or Frost Bank Center and you really want to eat your Whataburger while you watch the Spurs lose, right? Okay. Now, if I really want to eat that Whataburger, can I go out, go to the drive-through and come back in? No. I have to eat the Whataburger from the Frost Bank Center. Well, the Whataburger, I don't know if they've done this since the pandemic, but the Frost Bank Center, the Whataburger used to be open to the public until 2 o'clock as a regular restaurant. And then if there was an event, they would switch all their pricing to event pricing. So it cost more during an event or during like a concert or a sporting event, things like that. So it actually cost more. They have to adjust their pricing. So that demand driven pricing is basically the concept of your guests have nowhere else to go. If they want a Whataburger while they watch their favorite musician perform, they've got to eat that one and they're going to pay whatever the price is there. Same thing happens in airports. Okay. So you can't leave through TSA to go get Whataburger. You got to eat the Whataburger there in the terminal. And that price is probably going to be different than your neighborhood Whataburger. Okay. So those are external factors that we have no control over. When it comes to markup differentiation, basically what we're saying is it depends on the category within the menu of what your markup is, basically kind of a general idea of where your markup should be. Okay. So for soups and appetizers, we're between 20 to 50% markup. Okay. So whatever it costs me, I'm going to mark that up by 20% or 50%. I'm going to sell it for that price. Okay. Now, as you notice, our beverages, 30 to 90% markup. Okay. So this is where we get a lot of our revenue from, a lot of our money from is from beverages. A 90% markup means it costs me 10% of the cost. Okay. Whatever I'm selling it for, 10% is the cost, 90% is my markup. So that's where if it costs me 50 cents to make an iced tea, okay, if it costs me, and that's very generous. Okay, let's use our triangle for a moment. If it costs me 50 cents to make an iced tea, and I'm gonna do, let's say, a 10% markup, or sorry, 10% beverage cost. Okay. what would I sell that for? Triangle, cost divided by percent. What would I sell it for if I'm going for a 10%, 90% markup? $5. Going back to that price value relationship, do you think people are going to pay $5 for an iced tea? Probably not. What would you pay for what is the normal price for an iced tea?
$3.
$3, okay. So now if I sell it for $3 and my cost is 50 cents, what is my percentage? Oops. 50 cents divided by $3 is point.
16666.
16666. Okay. So 167. Move that decimal place over. That's 16.7%. Okay. 16.7% is the cost to make that tea. Okay. Now, let's go a little bit further. 16.7%. If I take, let's say, an entree, let's say, I don't know, a steak. Okay. What does it cost the restaurant usually to buy that steak? I'm gonna guess anywhere between $25 to $30. Okay. So if I say $30 is my cost to make this to buy the steak, how much should I sell it for? If I use that 0.167, what does this math tell me I should sell my steak for? Lydia, what did you get?
$179.64.
179.64. Okay. Do you think your guests are going to find the value price relationship of $179 for a steak? Okay, so this markup differentiation, I do all of this to show you that different categories have to have a different percentage. Okay, when we talk at the end of the period, we talk about how we want to maintain a 30 to 33% food cost. That's the average of everything we've taken in. So beverages are going to have a lower beverage cost. Some foods, especially the ones that have the higher ticket value as far as the cost, those higher proteins often are going to have they're going to have a higher food cost percentage above that 30 to 33. So at the end, everything's going to average together. Okay. So that markup differentiation. This is the answers to number one, I think, the four external factors that affect our menu prices. Now let's talk about different ways that we cost out our menus, our recipes. One of them is called the factor method. This is how we determine how much we should sell our items for. Okay, is our factor method. That's the first way. The factor essentially is our percentage, the 100% divided by the percentage that we want. Okay, so if I take 100%, and let's use this first example. I want to divide by 20 because that's my desired for percentage. I'm just going to have a factor of 5, which means I'm going to take my recipe cost and I'm just going to multiply by 5 if that's my factor. Okay. If my food cost is 25%, what is my factor? What is 100 divided by 25? How many quarters in a dollar? 4, right? So if my factor is 4, I'm going to take out this 25, make it 4. $2.50 times 4 is $10. Thank you. Okay. So I could do my triangle. right? I can do my triangle 250 divided by 0.25. But if I know that 25% divided by 100 is 4, and so multiply this by 4. It's a lot easier to do that. Okay? You're trying to find that common factor. 3. And we're going for 30%. What is our factor for 30%? 0.33. Okay? So we're going to multiply this by 3.33. And $3 times 3.33 is
3.9, 9.9.
$9.99. Okay? 40. What is our factor for 40%? 2.5. Remember? We're going to take 100 divided by 40. It'll give us 2.5. So you can use your calculator on this one. 1525 times 2.5.
38.125.
38.125.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll make it 3813. And the last one. What's 100 divided by 10? 10. So what's 15 cents times 10?
50.
$1.50. Okay, times 10. That's my factor. Okay, food cost percentage, and these are our factors. Any questions about the factor method? It works really easily when you've got even numbers like 2.5, 10, 4, right? That's why whenever someone says, take your menu recipe cost and multiply it by 3. Okay? If they say take your recipe cost and multiply it by 3, they're looking for a 33% food cost. Okay? The next one is our contribution margin. Okay? Our contribution margin, that's down there. These back up there. Okay? Our contribution margin, what is the root word of contribution? Contribute. So the way I remember it is our contribution margin is the cost that contributes to our non-food plus our profit. Okay? So our contribution cost is that cost, that expense that contributes to covering the non-food costs and our profit. Okay? So to find our contribution margin, we take our non-food cost and our profit, we add them together. What is our total right here? 5,000 plus 3,000?
8,000.
8,000. Okay, so that is my non-food cost, right? Non-food cost and my profit. I divide by the number of guests. In this case is 2,000. Okay. And what is my answer? 8,000 divided by 2,000 is
4.
$4, right? Cross those out. 8 divided by 2 is $4. So now I'm just going to add $4 to every single menu price or recipe cost. Because remember, this $4 represents the non-food costs and the profit plus the food cost, and that will give us our menu selling price. Okay? So 4 plus 250.
6.5.
$6.50. 4 plus 3. 4 plus 15.25 is 19.25, and then 4 plus 15 cents. So we can already see the difference between our menu pricing. Which one has the most drastic difference? between the contribution margin and the factor method? Which one has the most drastic difference? Well, actually, there's two of them that have the most drastic difference. Okay, look at this one for a second. Now look at this one.
Say this.
No, I mean, which menu item? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Sorry. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Which one has the most drastic different price between one method or the other?
15.25.
Okay, so the 15.25. Here, with our factor method, we're looking at $38, whereas our contribution margin method, it's only $19. It's almost $20 difference. And then also the 15 cents. So if it's 15 cents for me to make that beverage, okay, should I sell it for $4.15? Or should I sell it for $1.50? Okay, it depends on what that price value relationship is. Can probably guarantee you if you go to New York City, your iced tea is probably going to be $4.15. Okay, so that's that market driven pricing as well as the price value relationship. Okay, the other two methods, or one method is the Q factor. Sorry, go ahead. Yes.
So all these methods are I guess, what's the word for it? Kind of like a solution to find the same thing.
So they're a tool
So, okay.
to help you determine what you're going to sell your menu items for.
Okay.
Okay. But like I said, some menu items lean more to one method versus the other method.
I see. Okay. So you can
Okay. Yeah. So you could say your beverages, I'm not going to use this factor method, or sorry, this contribution margin method, because what you're saying is you're covering the cost, that $8,000, you're dividing that by all 2,000 people that are going to be coming in. Okay. And so that might work if you've got some higher items that you want to make sure that your food, like your non-food and your profit is covered. Okay. But in another sense, if people aren't paying $4.15 for iced tea and they opt for water instead because it's complimentary, then you've lost out on that $4. And this method isn't really that effective. Okay. So it's important to know which type of method you want to use. Okay. The fourth one that I have not mentioned, we've talked about it already, is the food cost percentage method. So so far we've talked factor method, contribution margin method. We've talked food cost percentage method through the use of the triangle. And now the last one is Q factor. Okay. So Q factor is our fourth method. So with our Q factor, basically Q factor can be done two ways. We'll talk about it two different ways during this class. Today, our Q factor basically represents all of the free stuff that comes with your menu item. Okay. So if you go to a place like we're going to use barbecue as an example. Okay. If you go to a place and maybe like the only difference is going to be the protein that's on the plate, but everything else is the same, whether you get a starch, a vegetable, your salad with dressing, if all that comes with the purchase of a meal, okay, and the only thing that's different is going to be the protein, well, then you can use this Q factor. So in this case, the bread, our starch, our vegetable, our salad, butter, and then the condiments, all of this equals up to $3.43. So then when I take into the account the cost of my brisket of $2.91 plus barbecue sauce and my Q factor, I don't have to add up all those over again because they're already added up in $3.43. That make sense? So then if I want to switch this out, maybe I want to do sausage. Remember how we did last class? We did the breakfast plate with sausage or bacon. okay? With the sausage or bacon, the Q factor would include the hash browns, the toast, and the eggs, because that's the same for everything except for the protein. So if you wanted to offer two different plates at different pricing, you could if you wanted to. But in this case, what we can do is we can add up that Q factor, all those complementary, okay? Complementary means what? It's free, okay? Although it's not free, it's built into the price of the item, okay? So when you go to a Mexican restaurant and you get a bag or a basket of chips, or you go to Alamo Cafe and you get a little tortilla warmer that's nonstop empty tortilla, like never empty tortillas. Those tortillas aren't free. There should be included in the cost of the overall meal. Okay. So a line item within that meal should be also how many tortillas or how a basket of chips, whatever the cost it is, should be built into that in order to make sure you're covering all your costs, all your expenses. Okay. So the menu item actually costs $6.75 if it includes brisket, barbecue sauce, and a Q factor. Okay. Now, like we talked about last class with the costing out of the breakfast menu plate, which one did we choose to base the base price off of? Was it the bacon or the sausage? One costs more.
Bacon.
Costs more. Yeah, good. The bacon costs more. So that's what we based the overall price on. Okay. So in a sense like this with your Q factor, the same thing should apply. For starch, what is starch? Who can give me an example of a side that might be a starch? Mashed potatoes. What else? French fries? What?
Bread?
Okay, yes, so bread's up here. But we might have so bread's already included. But what else? What would we consider a starch?
Rice.
Rice. My favorite. What kind of pasta? With barbecue. Mac and cheese, absolutely. Okay. Those will all be different starches. What kind of vegetables might we serve with barbecue?
Green beans.
Green beans. Corn. Corn's technically a starch, but it's okay. We'll let that slide for right now.
Broccoli?
Okay, broccoli.
Sometimes they give you pickles.
So pickles will probably be right here with your condiments. Cabbage, yep. Okay. So what we would want to do, if we're going to do a Q factor like this, do you think we want to base our Q factor on our cheapest side or the more expensive side? The more expensive. So of our starches, maybe the mac and cheese. We're going to base the cost on mac and cheese, and then we're going to base the cost of our vegetables maybe on, I don't know, roasted vegetables. Okay. Because every time we serve a side that's cheaper than one of those, we're going to make just a little bit more money, just like we did with the bacon and the sausage breakfast plate. Okay. So if I base it on, but then every time I sell it with mac and cheese and my most expensive vegetable, then I know I'm going to at least cover my cost. I'm not going to be losing money. Does that make sense? Okay. So Q factor. Contribution margin method, factor method, and food cost percentage method. Those are our four methods. Let's make sure we've gone through everything on that first part of the page. So to calculate the food cost percentage method, we use which tool?
Triangle.
The triangle tool, okay? Answer to number 3 is the triangle tool. So to calculate the factor method, we need to divide what by the desired percentage?
100.
100 by the desired percentage, and then we multiply that factor by the recipe cost, or the recipe cost by that factor. Okay? Contribution margin. We want to add the non-food and the profit. Divide by the number of guests. And then we add that to each of the menu prices. Recipe cost, sorry. So we did that one as our example. The Q factor refers to the total of all similar complementary items within a plate. And now we're moving on to number 7. Okay. Those are different ways that we can cost out our menu items where we can price what we determine what we're going to sell them for. And now we're going to talk about my favorite aspect of this class is the menu analysis. Okay. There's actually mathematically how you can analyze your menu to make sure that it is doing what you need it to do. Okay, because your menu is the tool that gets your items from you, from the kitchen, to your guests. Okay, and so we can actually analyze the effectiveness of that menu, of that tool, by using this item here. Okay, so in that blank space for number 7, I want you to draw what you see up on the screen. In addition to this, I want you to write the words high at the tip of the arrows. And I want you to draw or write the word low at the bottom left corner of your square. We have 4 categories. This type of a model is something that you'll see in business when you want to compare 2 different categories. You want to take 2 different categories, or 2 different items, characteristics, if you will, and divide them into 4 different categories. Okay? So we have 2 different categories, popularity and we have profitability. Okay. Profitability is our contribution margin. Profitability is our contribution margin. How profitable is an item as far as its contribution margin? Okay. Remember, the contribution margin covers the non-food costs and our profit. So the higher that contribution margin is, the more that it goes to cover our non-food costs and our profitability. Okay. The other one is our popularity. How popular something is, how much people like to order that particular item. Okay. So these 2 characteristics about our menu items will allow us, if we have a high popularity, right? High popularity and a high contribution margin, we call that our star. Okay. If it has low popularity and it has low contribution margin, that's our dog. If we have, let me change colors. If we have high popularity, but we have low contribution margin, those 2 come together in our plow horse. See how it works, how we can read this chart? Okay. And lastly, if we have low popularity, meaning people don't order it that often, but we have high contribution margin, which means it makes us a lot of money, those 2 come together in our puzzle.
So what? Sorry, I'm taking notes.
Yeah, what's that?
Did you say after that, the low and the?
If we have low popularity, meaning that people aren't ordering it that much, but it has high contribution margin, which means it makes us a lot of money. Those 2 come together as the puzzle category. Okay. This is how I remember it. Star and dog. Those are super easy, right? If it's high popularity and high contribution, it's a star. Of course, it's our shining star on our menu. If it's low popularity, low contribution margin, it's our dog. Okay, I don't know why. Maybe a cat person came up with this category, but I don't know why it's called a dog. It just is. Okay. Puzzle. I'm puzzled or I'm confused why it's not more popular. Okay. It makes me a lot of money, but I'm puzzled, I'm confused as to why it's not more popular. Okay, that's how I remember it. And then the last one is the plow horse. The plow horse is just doing its job. It's really popular. People love to order it, but for whatever reason, it's just not bringing us a lot of money in our contribution margins. Okay. Excuse me. So when we want to analyze our menu mix, let's do contribution margin first, number 8. The contribution margin is the difference between our selling price and the recipe cost. Okay, so our contribution margin is our selling price let's see. Selling price is right here, column E. So our menu price, excuse me, sorry, is $7.95 for this chicken breast. Okay. It costs me $2.81 to make it. So my contribution margin is $5.14. See how that works? It's our menu price minus the food cost. Okay. Justine, how much would we sell a chicken sandwich for? Do you think? How much would you buy like a grilled or a fried chicken sandwich? How much would you pay for a fried chicken sandwich? $4 or $5? Okay. Let's go in the middle, 450. Okay. If that's our menu price, and then our food cost is $2 to make it, then what is my contribution margin? $2.50. Okay. So contribution margin is not difficult. We're just taking whatever we sell it for, and we're going to subtract the food cost. Okay. Now, if we want to find our average, how do you find the average of anything?
Add it all together and divide by the number.
Exactly. We add them all up and we divide by the number. Okay. So number 9, to find the average contribution margin, we need to add all the contribution margins together, and then B, divide by the number of items on the menu. Okay. So let's do that right now with this information on the screen. Okay. So we're gonna go these contribution margins. Let me erase so we don't get confused. Okay. Our contribution margins are highlighted here in yellow. Okay. So I want to add all of these up. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to divide by 8. We have 8 items. Okay. So I want you to go ahead and add up all those numbers. I'm going to do it as well. And then we can compare answers. Do our numbers match? $6.46. I added them up, $51.64. I added all those up. And then I divide, that's the division sign, sorry. Don't want to make sure it's not like a 1. So I divide by 8 and we get $6.46. Okay, see how that works? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare the contribution margin for each item. So is $5.14, is that higher or lower than 646? It is lower. Okay, 664 is higher than our average of 646. That's basically what we're doing. We're going to compare, is 1871 higher or lower? It's higher. And then we have each one of these categories down here that are all lower than our average of 646. Okay, so we first have to find the average, and then we compare each individual item to that average. And is that item higher or lower than the average? Okay. Questions, comments, concerns about that? That's the easy one. Okay. Now let's talk about popularity percentage. Okay. Popularity percentage is basically how popular an item is on the menu, how many times that we sell it. Okay. That's our popularity percentage, number 10 on your notes page. Popularity percentage, we also call that our menu mix. Okay, menu mix. To find our popularity, how are we doing on time? Okay, we got plenty of time. To find our popularity, we want to add up everything that we served during a particular time period. We just add them all up. Okay. In this case, we have 4,845 items that were sold based on the screen. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns so far about how we got that 4,845? We just add up everything that we sold that day. Okay. And now, what is the universal formula for percentage? Part divided by the whole, right? So this is the part divided by the whole of 4,845 items. So we're basically going to divide each one of these by 4,845. Each one of those is the part. And we want to find out what percentage of the whole of 4,845 is that part. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns about finding, we're gonna practice this, okay? We're gonna practice it quite a bit, to be honest. Okay, so these are basically all of our percentages. For the contribution margin, how did we find out the high or low category for contribution margin? What was the first step? We had to add them all up.
The average.
Yeah, we find the average, exactly. So we had to add them all up and divide by that to get our average. That's our first step, okay? And then we can compare each one to that average, okay? Popularity does one more step. And don't ask me why. I don't know why. It just does, okay? So here's what popularity, what we call the benchmark. Let me actually see if I have a benchmark slide. I can't remember if I do or not. I don't, okay. So number 11 on our notes page, we want to find that popularity benchmark. That benchmark is the number we're going to compare everything else to, okay? We need to divide 100 by the number of items on the menu. So in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What is 100 divided by 8? 12.5. Okay, so if everything was averaged out, 12.5 is the average percentage. Okay. Popularity percentage takes it one step further. Then we have to multiply 11B on your notes page. Then we have to multiply by the factor that is given. Okay, this is a factor that I will always give you. In this case, let's call it 80%. So I want to multiply this times 0.80. If I take 12.5 and multiply by 80%, my answer is 10%. So that is my benchmark. Okay. That is my benchmark as far as what I'm going to compare each one of these items to. Now let me look at something real quick before I go. Okay, that'll work. Okay. So if my percentage is 10, my benchmark is 10%. Okay. 17.9, is that higher or lower? That is higher. Seafood platter at 5.2%, higher or lower than 10?
Low.
Low. And you see how we go down the list, right? High, higher than 10, lower than 10, lower than 10%, higher, higher, and lower. Okay? Questions, comments, concerns, how we found those? Yes.
The 100 that we use to divide the 8 by, is that just to give us the 80% or?
So the 100 that we divided the 8 by is because there's 8 items on the menu. Okay? And so that will give us what our average percentage is. And that popularity factor, it will say something like, to be considered popular, an item must receive at least 75% of the average popularity or 80% of the average popularity. Okay. So that factor of 75 or 80 or whatever that factor is, that will always be given to you as far as homework assignments in my class. When you go out to the industry and it's your restaurant, you get to decide what that percentage, what that factor is. Okay. The higher that factor is, the closer to the average it's going to be. Okay. If you have a lower, the lower your factor is, the further away, further lower than your average popularity percentage is. Okay. We could also go the opposite direction. I never thought about it until literally just this moment. We could go the opposite direction. We could say, in order for this to be highly popular, you have to reach 125% of the average popularity. So when we make 125 as a decimal, that becomes 1.25. So we could take that 12.5%, multiply by 1.25, and it's going to give us a higher number of 15.6%. So that means in order to be considered popular in my book, you have to reach higher than the average popularity. Okay. And then that's the number we would use to compare high and low. Okay. So that factor is completely up to you. But for my problems, that factor will always be given. Okay. Any questions about popularity? So now that we have our two pieces of the puzzle, we have popularity and contribution margin. Okay, let's draw our square right here just for a second. Remember, this is popularity, this is contribution margin. If something has a low contribution margin, and a high popularity, that's gonna be our plow horse, so chicken. Okay. Let's look at our seafood platter. We have high contribution margin, but we have low popularity. So that becomes our puzzle. Our steak dinner has high contribution margin and high popularity. That's going to be our star. Turkey sandwich. We have low contribution margin, low popularity. People are not buying it. Well, it's not so much that they're not buying it, it's just not as popular. Okay. Same thing with our pork chop, low and low. Our hamburger has low contribution margin, but people like it. So that's going to be a plow horse. Our cheeseburger, same thing. And then our meatloaf has low contribution and lower popularity percentage. So now we've analyzed this menu. What menu item is our star? Steak, right? We look at our steak dinner, of course, it cost me $6.24 to make it. I sell it for $24.95, so it's a pretty high contribution margin. And luckily, people like it. People order it. Okay. Now looking at our turkey, pork, and meatloaf at our dogs, what are we going to do with those? What could we do with those?
Make them cheaper.
Okay, so we could make them cheaper. So if we decrease the cost and we keep the menu price the same, that could potentially increase the contribution margin. Okay, which might get them over into that puzzle category. What else?
Offer some sort of deal.
What do you mean by offer a deal?
Um. I'm not sure right now.
Okay,
Special,
Yeah.
what's that?
like a special.
Okay, so maybe they're just on special. Maybe we don't offer them on our menu the whole time. Maybe during a season of Lent, are people going to be buying steak during Lent? No, 'cause people don't eat red meat during Lent. So we might have that turkey and the pork as just a special during that particular time of the year, but maybe not on our menu the entire time. Okay, what about meatloaf? Meatloaf's kind of a tricky item, right? Because people only love
You either love it or you hate it.
you either love it or hate it, or you either love your recipe and hate everybody else's recipe. Okay. And so maybe it's just not super popular, and it's okay to let it go off of our menu. Okay. Now, if we look at meatloaf, what are the ingredients in meatloaf? Ground beef,
Crackers, onions, bell peppers,
onions, okay,
tomato
garlic,
sauce.
tomato sauce. So all those things, a lot of those things are already on our menu with our hamburgers, right? We probably have onions for our hamburgers. Okay. So meatloaf, ground beef, onions, maybe some garlic. I don't know if y'all are like me, but my mom always put ketchup on the top of her meatloaf. Okay. And so that ketchup, I already have ketchup for the hamburgers. So maybe I'm just gonna order a little bit and only make a little bit of meatloaf and not make too much that it goes to waste. Because obviously there's people that are ordering it. So what happens if you take meatloaf off the menu and that one person who orders your meatloaf every single week comes in and they're like, where's my meatloaf? Right? You could lose that customer. So, or you can just take it off the menu altogether. And when that customer comes in, it was like, you know what? You want to try one of our cheeseburgers? Our meatloaf's no longer on the menu, but we've got a great chicken breast dinner. and it comes with all your favorite sides. It's just the chicken breast instead of the meatloaf, right? And so we're able to be able to like sell them on that change. Sometimes our menus change, and that's okay. If you're a small independent restaurant, you can change your menu all the time, whenever you want to. Now, if you're a corporate restaurant, it's a little bit more difficult. They always have specific items that have to be the same no matter where you go. If you, this is something really interesting that I learned probably about almost 10 years ago now, I guess. I think it was 2015. I went to see my best friend in Scotland. At the time, I was on this kick to go and get Hard Rock pint glasses and collect glassware from different Hard Rock cafes. Every Hard Rock cafe in the world has the exact same menu. It's the exact same menu, no matter where you go in the world. It's the same Hard Rock Cafe menu. The only difference is they have what's called a local legendary burger. We get to basically create a burger with like the regional flavor. So in San Antonio for the longest time, it was a burger with jalapeno cream cheese. And I think some like fried jalapenos, like bombers on top. So that's the only item that's different on all Hard Rock cafes across the entire world. They have the exact same menu. I thought that was wild. But most corporate places, they may change their menu slightly differently based on where where the restaurant is in the region or in the country. Like for example, Maine, the McDonald's in the summertime, the McDonald's would actually serve a lobster roll, which is basically like a little hot dog bun, for lack of better words, hot dog bun with some lobster meat in it. And they'd serve that for like $8 at McDonald's. And then down the street, you buy a lobster roll that's like Maine lobster, and it was like $32. McDonald's was Atlantic lobster. So it wasn't quite Maine. It could be lobster caught somewhere off the coast of the New England area. But anyways, that's a weird tangent. But our menus can change. How do you think we can get that seafood platter? It's a puzzle, which means it makes us a lot of money, but people aren't buying it. How do you think we might be able to get that seafood platter up to a star as a steak? Well, not as a steak, but like up in the same category as steak. What could we do to get that seafood platter up to become a star?
Change the actual like seafood proteins.
Say that one more time.
Change the actual like proteins that are on it.
Okay, so maybe on our seafood platter we have octopus, and people in San Antonio aren't quite ready to eat octopus, but they love shrimp and mussels. And so maybe we change it a little bit to where it's maybe more appealing. Good. We can maybe find out why people aren't ordering it. What else?
Say advertising.
Advertising. Absolutely. How many of you have eaten at Cheesecake Factory? Anybody? Okay. Spiral bound notebook is your menu. Over 200 items. When I was a server at Cheesecake Factory at North Star Mall, we had to learn every single menu item just by sight. My final exam to pass my server trainer was a slideshow of 200 pictures, and I got a piece of paper that had 1 through 200 and a blank line. I had to write the menu item for every single 200 items, including the 45 different types of cheesecakes, just by sight. Okay.
You have to get all of them right.
I did. Yeah. Well, because think about it. On the line, there's a whole bunch of plates. And if I have a ticket, I have to know which plates to pull. If I pull a different plate and take it out to the wrong table, then that food has to be wasted. It has to be remade again. And so it costs a lot of money as far as food cost. And so, yeah, as a server, we had to know all 200 items by sight and what they were. Okay. Now, I could not imagine doing a menu analysis for Cheesecake Factory. I'm hoping it's somewhere like on a computer system that helps you out with that, right? But it's important because if you go in, do any of you have a favorite item at the Cheesecake Factory? What's that? The churro cheesecake? Oh, turtle cheesecake. Yes, that one was very good. Yeah. And but think about it, like if you go and you just flip just to the back for cheesecakes, you may not realize they have pastas, they have pizzas, they have salads, they have sandwiches. What's that? The salmon? Yeah. So you never know. So as a server, I would always go and I would tell all of my guests, pastas are on page 11, sandwiches are on page 10, appetizers are on page 8. Because I don't want them sitting there flipping through every single page. I want to direct them to where they want to go so they can order their food and then get out of my table so that I can get another table in and they can make more money. Okay. But of course, we never say that to the guest. We take your time, enjoy your meal, but hurry up, please. Okay. And so it's important that if someone has like their favorite thing, they may not even realize that you offer something. Okay. So they may never even realize you have a seafood platter because they go in, they always order that cheeseburger. Okay. Or they always order the steak. And so you may decide, okay, let me go ahead and try to advertise this. Let me have my servers suggestively sell this. Let me have them recommend, hey, have you all seen our new improved seafood platter? It has these different types of proteins on it. And if people have never heard that before, never seen it on the menu, it may trigger them to go ahead and order it. Okay. So advertising and talking about things absolutely helps. Okay. So we're going to do this activity in class together. But in the interest of giving our whole time to that activity on Wednesday, I want to just kind of bring up these last couple questions. When we look at wanting to making menu modifications, we want to change something about our menu. We want to ask, is the menu the problem or is the problem operational? Okay, so is the menu the issue as to why people maybe things are too varied? I used to think, oh my gosh, how can you keep track of everything that there's 200 menu items on a menu, right? How can you make sure that everything is still being profitable? Okay. I had friends who owned a deli on Broadway a while back, and they had the Chinese chicken salad on their menu, and it had mandarin oranges on their salad. That's one of the ingredients. It was the only menu item that had mandarin oranges. So if they opened a can that was too big, if they ordered a big can of mandarin oranges and didn't sell that salad very often, then that can would go to waste. They had to throw away the product, right? So they decided to take it off their menu altogether because in that case, the recipe, they didn't have ingredients that were shared through other recipes in order to that was the only salad that used that specific type of salad dressing. So there are a lot of different reasons why they decided to go ahead and take it off the menu. Is the problem operational? Okay, so in that case, originally they went from buying a large can of mandarin oranges to then buying a small can like you get at HEB, which you can usually do like if you're a small independent restaurant, you can just go do your grocery shopping at HEB. But even then, those small cans cost too much compared to what the money they were bringing in. So operationally, they decided to just get rid of it altogether. So we got to figure out, is the menu the problem? Is it operational? Okay. There is a whole science, believe it or not, behind menu analysis and menu psychology. Okay. How many of you been to a place where they have a little icon next to items and it's like this is the guest favorites, right? When you go to Chili's, there's a little chili pepper next to certain items on the menu. What is the purpose of that chili pepper?
To draw your attention.
To draw your attention. So is it really popular or are you just trying to draw my attention to it to make it more popular? Because we go back real quick. Oh, here we go. If it's really popular and it brings you a lot of money, then that's my star. So it may not be the guest's favorite, but it might be your favorite because it brings you the most money, right? And so sometimes when I see that, I'm like, is it really the guest favorite? Or is it really, are you just trying to get me to buy that? Right? Sometimes I give in and I try it and it's really tasty. Sometimes I try it and it's like, that's not so great. I don't know what your other guests see in that, but I probably won't be ordering that again. So sometimes that menu analysis, menu psychology, if you open a menu, next time you go out to eat where you actually have a menu, not a phone, maybe it's a lot of this is going away since we have QR code menus now. But when you pick up a menu, most of the people go directly to the top right. If you open up a threefold menu, where does your attention usually go? Right down the middle. So placing those items in the direct view of people helps you to figure out, is the menu my problem, my menu the issue, why people aren't buying it? Or is it operational and that it costs me too much to make it? Okay, I need to change the recipe. And then after we've made changes, we're going to reevaluate our contribution margin. Did it affect the popularity? Sometimes if we raise our price too much, people don't find that value price relationship. They don't buy it anymore. It's not popular. It now drops to a different category. Okay. So we're going to see that. We're going to be able to analyze that. So what I would like, and actually, I'm going to update our due date on one assignment. This popularity benchmark and average contribution margin. I'm going to go ahead and make this due on Thursday, on Wednesday. Before you come to class, so right at 2 o'clock. So I'm going to change this due time because I want you to have this concept down. It'll help us move through the activity a lot faster. Okay. So let's go through. We're gonna work on the first one together in the last few minutes. Okay. So there are 16 questions. The last 4 questions, 13 through 16, are contribution margin. Questions 1 through 12 is 3 different scenarios with 4 different questions each. I'm going to show you what I mean by that. Let's do number 13 first together as a group though. Okay. So if I want to find my contribution margin, what do I have to do? Remember, what is contribution margin? Number 8 on your notes page. Selling price minus the recipe cost is equal to my contribution margin. So I need to do that for each one of these. Got 1421 for the first one. What do I have for the second one?
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Sure. We actually annotate. You're welcome. Okay. So the first one I got was 1421. Justina, what'd you get for number 2? Okay, 1664. Daniel, what'd you get for number 3? Make sure you unmute yourself.
26, sorry.
That's okay. 26. And then the last one, Andrew. What do we get?
Again, sorry.
We agree, 834?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So now that's first step. Second step, we're gonna add them all together. So that's 4 and 4 is 8 and 1 is 9. 2, 8 plus 3 is 11. 12, 16, 17, 25, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 65, 19. Okay, cool. And we have how many items? Divided by 4. 65, 19. $16.30. So we just type in here 16.30. Okay, see how that works? So that's one. You got 3 more you're gonna do on your own. Okay. All right, now let's go and talk about, oh my gosh, we have 2 minutes. Woo. Sorry, I was not paying attention to time. Okay, let's look at questions 1 through 4. Okay. So questions 1 through 4, this information is the same for each question, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Each question is asking for a different category, menu category. Okay, so the numbers stay the same. It's just number 1, we're asking about the appetizer only. Number 2, we're asking about the salad only. 3 is the entree, and 4 is the dessert. Okay, this is where we're going to use that popularity benchmarking. Okay, so we take 100. Divide by the 5 appetizers, and we get what? What's 100 divided by 5? 20. And then we're going to multiply by that 0.75. And that's going to give me 15. So 15% is my benchmark for appetizers. So I put in 15. Okay. Then I come down here, and my next category, it's the salads. So let's use a different color for salads. What's 100 divided by 6? 16.7. We multiply that by 0.75. And we get 12.5. Okay, 12.5. I know I'm right at 3:15, but give me about 30 more seconds and I'll get through the number 3 and 4 really quickly. Okay. Then we have 15 entrees. So 100 divided by 15 entrees is 6.7. And we're going to multiply that by 0.75. And we're going to get 5. Okay. So my answer is 5%. And then the last one, desserts. We have 4 desserts, so 100 divided by 4 is 25. We're going to multiply that by the 0.75. And we get 18.75. Okay, 18.75. Here's a moment of truth. Our final score should be 5. Because we've answered 5 questions. Let's all keep our fingers crossed. Okay, good. We're good. 5 out of 16. Okay. So now you have the answers to questions 1 through 4. Now, if you look at 5 through 8, different numbers and a different popularity percentage. And then questions 9 through 12, different numbers, different popularity. This is just your practice to do this over and over and over again. Okay. So that is gonna be due before 2 o'clock when you come to class on Wednesday. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Uminski.
Welcome. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.